What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of The Truth here on the Monday night, December 15th, 7 p.m. PT. I know this is a bit of a late one. I don't know how many people are going to join me live for this show. We had a little bit of a backup. I was going to go live at 5, but some things conspired to make sure I didn't go live at 5. And we have a lot of stuff going on here, a lot of Christmas preparation. Lady Outlaw's out in the kitchen making Christmas cookies for some of the neighbors and some of the family members and what have you. So I always look forward to her making those Christmas cookies and Christmas peanut butter balls. So my job is to stay out of the kitchen when that stuff happens, because she is very clear as a former chef what she wants to have done in her kitchen and the rules of her kitchen. And I respect that as a man who is in love with her and who appreciates the fact that I get to taste some of those peanut butter balls and Christmas cookies, but not too many, of course, because I've lost some pounds, and so I don't want to put them all back during the Christmas season. Although it's been hard, I got to be honest with you, it's been hard. You know, you can't just go back on the stuff or rely on the stuff you've used before when you keep smelling all the different types of great sweets and tempting goodies that people are making all over your neighborhood, all over the stores. Wherever you drive, the pumpkin spice latte is back. And yes, I'm a basic bitch like that. I like those with the almond milk and the whipped cream. So I've had to cheat a few times on my diet, which has put on probably 5 to 7 pounds back onto my body. But so be it. I want to enjoy my life a little bit and then get back to doing things the way they were. So I've got to be careful on when I cheat and what I eat when I cheat, for sure, to be on point on all of that. But yes, so that's the situation. So I've been like working on stuff here in the office and looking at stuff. I've gotten some new equipment. I'm going to move the office around probably sometime tomorrow or Wednesday. And the Lady Outlaw is going out of town for a few days, so I'll have that time to really figure things out of what look I want to have here in the office and what have you. So we'll see. I bought some new wall slats that I'm going to be putting behind me. Or if that doesn't work out, I'm going to break out the 10-foot green screen again, but put it behind the bookcases and see if that works. So I'm going to try that out, as kind of a new look as we go into 2026. And speaking of new looks, this is something that I'm going to be doing more and more, these live shows. I know I've promised it in the past, but this is absolutely what I'm going to be doing. What I need to do is lock down a time. I'm either going to be doing it from 4 to 7 4 to 6, or 3 to 5, or maybe some nights 5 to 7. It all depends on the situation, because I do have screenings at night, so I'll have to make sure I'm done in time to get to screenings. And I never know how long I'm going to go. Last time I did this just a few days ago, I went for 3 hours, which really surprised me that so many people were watching and tuning in to what was going on in my world and things that are going on in my life and what have you. So I was really surprised I went for 3 hours, but I did. I went for 3 hours. So, And I already went live earlier today with Christian, of course, for a couple hours, 8 a.m. in the morning, my time. I went right back to sleep and napped about an hour and a half, got up and got some things done here around the house in preparation for the show, but also in preparation for things we have going on here in the next few days. So yeah, really busy day for me overall, but I'm here. I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I don't know if I'm going to make it through the show tonight. I really don't know. There's a lot to talk about. But I'm also still pretty emotionally fucked up from what happened last night. I suppose we should start there. But before I do, I just want to remind you all, if you're new to the channel, you're trying it out, just listen for a little bit, watch for a little bit. If you like it, subscribe down below and hit that bell button so you see we're dropping all the content we do here. I will be locking down a specific time for the truth. So that's going to be clear. A specific time for the truth is going to happen. So I'm going to be locking that down soon. And so you'll be able to rely on the show coming out a certain time every day, because consistency is key on YouTube. Everyone says that. So I'm going to try to post 2 videos a day, which will be a taped video in the morning or in the early afternoon, then a live show later on in the day to talk about all the things that are going on in the world of entertainment, and to just kind of be there for everybody. I'm seeing everything that's happening around in the world, and I feel like I need to do more, and I feel like I need to be available more. And I think when we were doing the Outlaw Nation show, a lot of people were so cool to join me going live once a week and talking about stuff. But clearly, man, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of hatred. There's a lot of bitterness. A lot of young men or men in general who are lost. Women who are lost. Whatever gender you identify yourself as, people are lost. People are angry. People are frustrated. People are overwhelmed. It doesn't help that you've got someone in power who thrives on the chaos, thrives on division, thrives on creating anger out into the world and having his sycophants defend his behavior, defend his words, which we'll get to a little bit later, his words about Rob Reiner. And it makes it hard. And I think people need a place to come and talk about it or hear about it or hear me talk about it. And many of you have reached out to me over the years and said how much you appreciate me going live, how much you appreciate my shows, the things I talk about, which I appreciate in return. So I'm going to try to do this more. I'm going to try to be consistent with it. And I'm going to have to get over the fact that I might fail or succeed. Like I have to remove being invested in the results and focus on creating a good show. I want to have segments in the show. I want to have little video vignettes that pop up to introduce segments. There's plans going forward for the show, and we will see. We will see what it ends up becoming by the time I'm done with it. And by the time I've got it humming along, but I can't get it where it needs to be unless I keep doing it, trial and error, and making efforts. And of course, hearing y'all's criticism, y'all's suggestions, that would be amazing as well. Any thoughts you guys have for juicing up the look or juicing up the approach, I'm always open to. We are in the Christmas season. Oh, let me move over a little bit. We are in the Christmas season. You see the Noel behind me as well. I've got Princess Bride up there, right here. I've got When Harry Met Sally. The movies I own of Rob Reiner. That I do not have Few Good Men because I keep waiting for that to come out in 4K. It's never come out in 4K. Misery I do not have, but I have the book somewhere. Should have pulled the book out for today. So many great movies. This is Spinal Tap and what have you. So there's a lot to discuss. We'll get into that in just a second. Also, we're going to get into those Avengers Doomsday trailer leaks and what have you. So some of you may want to tune out when we get into those, and some of you may want to tune in when we get into those and look for that. Also, we're going to jump into some Ted Sarandos news. Sarandos, yes, like Saran wrap, Sarandos. Sarandos news about WB and Netflix. And then the Stranger Things trailer, season 5, volume 2 trailer that dropped. So we'll talk that a little bit. I have not seen Welcome to Derry yet, the finale. I'll be watching that after I'm done with the show tonight. We will be reviewing it tomorrow on the Geek Buddies. We're probably recording about 9 or 10 a.m. in the morning, so it'll be out like by noon. And then, of course, still going live with Winston tomorrow night for Spill the Tequila. And tonight, I'm skipping out on a Housemaid screening because I just have no interest in seeing that movie. And maybe I'll go see it sometime this week, like, when there's 5 people in the theater or something this weekend. If I hear some good reviews, if I hear some good reactions, maybe I'll go see it. But I'm not really going to break my back to try to see that movie because I don't think the channel's going to live or die whether I put a review up of The Housemaid or not. So we'll see, though. We'll see. We'll see. I've seen those promotions. I've seen some people commenting on it. I haven't seen many critics comment on it. So we'll see in the end if I go see that one. But don't count your chickens on that one. I'll just say that right off the bat. All right, so let's get into things. Just a reminder, Streamlabs Super Chats are open. If you want to send in some support, send in some love for me going live late at night here at 7 p.m. Well, late for me, 7 p.m. PT. I don't know what it's like 3 a.m. in Europe, 4 a.m. in Europe. Maybe you're waking up to me going live here in the States. And thank you so much for joining me if you are. And of course, guys, let me know what you want to talk about. It doesn't just have to be my rundown. This is our show. This is the truth. We talk about the truth. So whatever you want to talk about, throw it into the Streamlab or Super Chats, and I will absolutely talk about it and get into it. And whatever subject you guys want to explore, within reason, I'm 100% on board with doing. But let's start out here, of course. Sadly, we must start out here. The passing of Rob Reiner, the murder of Rob Reiner last night, sadly, at his home in Brentwood. with his wife, Michelle. Um, it's just heartbreaking to hear about this. He was 78, she was 68. And from the reports coming out now and the arrest that's been made, the suspect at this point is their son, Nick, who you see there in the Nike jacket, who has struggled with drug addiction and mental health issues since he was 15 years old. Now, this is all, he's still a suspect. It's not official. We're not sure what the evidence is, and we're not sure if he's the only one that was there. There's just a lot of things around this right now that are kind of up in the air, but it is a very tragic story, sad story, heartbreaking story. Rob Reiner, for so many of you who are watching me right now, and so many of you who might be watching me later, and all of us who have experienced movies since the 80s, Rob Reiner was an essential part of our lives in so many ways. I mean, The Princess Bride, you look at these movies here, The Princess Bride, Stand By Me, Few Good Men, This Is Spinal Tap, When Harry Met Sally. I mean, you could literally go in order with these movies as you aged, right? Like, This Is Spinal Tap, maybe you're a young adult kid, you're seeing that movie the first time, and you're laughing at this rock group. Stand By Me, or Princess Bride, is the one that like captures an adult's approach to fairy tales. So you're coming into your teen years. Then you go into Stand By Me, dealing with a dead body. You're starting to remember, or maybe you're experiencing the loss of young friends in your life because they're moving on, or their family moved out of the state, or whatever. Like, there's things you experience, or the memories that you have. When Harry Met Sally, maybe you're opening the door to love for the first time and you're exploring that. And then A Few Good Men, you're probably in your 20s when that movie comes out, if you grew up in the 80s, and you're seeing courtroom thrillers, and you're seeing corrupt military, and you're seeing, how people who are in bad positions or lower positions or submissive positions can be taken advantage of by men in power. And of course, if you're in your teenage years in the 80s, then all of this really gets you into that place. But these are incredible films that he was responsible for making. Also, of course, first bursting onto the scene for a lot of our parents who are 80 from the 80s kids, our parents with All in the Family, playing Meathead in All in the Family, the liberal voice on the show who was constantly made fun of by the conservative voice on the show, being Carol O'Connor, Archie Bunker, who wasn't in the end as conservative as we were led to believe initially. Kind of one of the first like anti-heroes on television, in that if we were to watch that show now, there'd be a lot of discourse about how racist or sexist or homophobic Archie is. But there were always like lines where Archie couldn't even go as far as a conservative mindset at that time might consider going. We used to have lines. We used to have morality. We used to have lines we didn't cross. Now there are no more lines that people are not willing to cross, sadly. And we're in a bit of a morass, morally, I think mental health wise, dealing with all the stuff that's going on in our world, the overwhelming nature of it all, but Rob's movies were amazing at helping us to see the world as a place that could be positive, right? You look at This Is Spinal Tap, like that's just a fun mockumentary film that kind of plays up Martin Scorsese in The Last Waltz a little bit. Marty DeBurgi, that's not, the character he plays, and that's on purpose to make it sound like Marty Scorsese. But what they're going through is the breakup of a band, right? And a lot of people, when that movie came out, we're still dealing with the breakup of the Beatles. It had only been a decade earlier. Bands were breaking up through the 70s, and so you have a band like this that's going through things they're going through, but it's done with a comedic point of view, even though some of the scenes can be a little harsh. Certainly what goes on with the woman in between Christopher Guest and Michael McKean's characters, you see that, right? And they're the things that they're trying to, but in the end, they find their way back to each other because it's brotherhood. They have an alliance in the end, even though they've gone at each other. There's still a friendship at the end, right? Always the possibilities. You look at Stand By Me, this idea of these young kids who are at odds from different walks of life, judging each other because they come from different walks of life. And they're thrown together in this situation. A young Will Wheaton, a young, so sad passing of River Phoenix, but young at the time, Jerry O'Connell, and Corey Feldman, all coming together in this story. And I think the narrator is Daniel Stern, or was it Richard Dreyfuss? I forget. Maybe it's Richard Dreyfuss who's the narrator of that one. I think, or yeah, Daniel Stern narrates something else. I think he does The Wonder Years. So I think it's Richard Dreyfuss who narrates Stand By Me, who we see at the end is the writer. But what they go through there and what they experience and how they come closer together and how they figure out that they need to learn to accept each other, and the judgments they had of each other from looks or from things they were told were not the truth, and that they were people that could kids that could find their way to a friendship, even though they came from different walks of life, and none of them knew what the other person had been going through. Certainly, Corey Feldman's story is pretty heartbreaking in the film, and you see the different characters that they're playing. Corey being the one who's more willing to jump into danger. Jerry Connell character is less willing to jump into danger. Will Wheaton's more of the brainiac and thing, and then of course River Phoenix being more of the not menace, but the possible physical. I don't know, the bruiser in a way, so to speak, but of course the bruiser who has got a heart of gold, who's much more smarter than you think by the time it all plays itself out. So it's a fascinating, but again, it's about coming together, understanding that love is important, friendship is important. A society, they're in essence a mini society, and that we have to come together even though we have different points of view. It's a powerful moment in that. When Harry Met Sally, a great film that explores relationships from a place of acceptance and understanding and progression, and that both of them have to have a voice, and you've got to learn to let your guard down and be vulnerable, or you're never going to find love. You're never going to find the person you're supposed to be with, and you need to find that one you're supposed to be with that lets you be yourself, that appreciates who you are as a person. I took the wrong message from that movie when I was younger. The first many times I watched it, because it was like, well, it's got to be like this. Love has to be like this, and if it's not like this, then it must be wrong, or you're doing it wrong, right? But as you get older, you realize like the message of the movie is about, again, finding your way to love by accepting the other person for who they are. That speech Crystal delivers at the end to Sally, that's his way of saying I love you without saying I love you, is that he notices all these things about her, and all these things are about her are the things that she loves. Remember, Robin Williams said that in Good Will Hunting, my wife used to fart in bed. It's those things it's those things when they pass, those little flaws, those little inequities are the things you remember, because those are the things that made that person who they were. And those are the things you fall in love with when you love someone. I could tell you a million things that I love about the Lady Outlaw. Go list them. And they're unique, they're funny, they're different, they're unusual, but they're the things that form her as a person. And I love each and every one of them, even when sometimes they irritate me, and vice versa, I'm sure. So again, it's about, acceptance and love and vulnerability and friendship and finding your way back to each other, right? You look at Princess Bride, another great film that explores love from a different angle, in terms of like two people from two different walks of life, one poor, one essentially privileged, and they fall in love with each other. And there's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of assumptions, and then you realize that the fairy tale is not the truth. The truth is what you feel, no matter where they come from. You can fall in love with anybody. And just because the other person is a prince and has all of this stuff, it doesn't mean that that's the person you're supposed to be with. Of course, it's told through the great prism of a fairy tale construct and the humor within it all. But what is it about at the end? It's about them finding true love and accepting each other. And even though Wesley changes from who he was at the beginning of the movie to because of the experiences with Jed Pirate Roberts, the love he has for her is still very much coursing through his veins, but it's from a much more hardened place. And her love for him is still there. And she calls him out near the end to make it clear that she, loved him deeply and all of that. So you see that and the things they have to go through. And of course, the friendships with Inigo Montoya, with Fezzik, all of that. You see them coming together to overcome evil, from Humperdinck, from Christopher Guest's character, and from Wallace Shawn's character. again, love carrying the day. You look at something like A Few Good Men, right? A Few Good Men. What's that about? It's about this terrible thing that happened to this soldier. And this was right around the time when when I was in the military too, when this film came out. And it's a soldier who's gotten screwed over by a commanding officer in order to use that kid to enact discipline. You know, the code red, right? You call the code, and it's about justice. It's about justice for the little guy, justice for the person who is not it doesn't have the power in the situation. It's about pushing back, calling out, and exposing the corruption that people sometimes have in their hearts when they have this power. We're seeing it now from the highest office in the land, the corruption and the anger and the willingness to violate all the rules in order to achieve what they want to achieve. You know, today or this afternoon, Trump came out and said the filibuster must go away because he knows he's losing power. He knows the midterms are about to kick him in the ass. And so his way of doing things is like, we got to get the filibuster changed so that we can start pushing legislation through before the midterms, or we're going to lose all this momentum. And already a couple of people are already changing their tune about the filibuster because of the pressure from the Trump. But that's, of course, corruption from the top on down. And that's what you see. And that film tackles that through Jack Nicholson's character, who lies on the stand, lies throughout the movie about what happened in order to defend himself. Instead of having the guts to go, yes, I did it, until the end, until he gets called out and forced by Tom Cruise, in essence, to finally blurt out the truth. He could have avoided all this if he really believed what he did was the right thing to do. He should have stood on business, but he doesn't. He tries to use the halls of power. He tries to use his own status as a general to do the things that he wanted to do. And in the end, he gets smoked for it, right? And so it's those things. And then you look at Misery. Misery is a great film with a commentary about fandom and what happens to people who are the focus of fandom and the horrible things that can occur. But in the end, what happens? In the end, it's about him learning to come to terms with this and in a way kind of forgiving her for being the way that she was. And him realizing that he has to stop hating the fans who read his stuff. It's very similar to what Carol is going through in Pluribus. How do you deal with your hatred of society or hatred of the people that has the air of elitism to it? He is brought to his knees, or literally to a bed by this woman because of his arrogance, because of his desire to kill the thing that has made him famous, because he's sick of doing this thing because he thinks it's beneath him. It's this idea of learning how to accept the blessings and the gifts you have in life, and finding out by the end that, like, you need to come to terms with these things, and you need to feel the blessings of these things, because not everyone gets the chance to do those things. And so there's that element of that as well that I think is all these films are great lessons about learning to accept the positive things in your life, learning to find common ground, learning to grow, learning to evolve. All of them, just amazing films in that way. And the other film, I didn't see Spinal Tap 2, so I haven't seen that one yet. So we'll see where we go with that one if I do end up seeing it when it's all over. But I thought his stuff as a director, he had one of the greatest. I mean, just one of the greatest runs starting out. When you go from This Is Spinal Tap to Stand By Me to The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, Few Good Men, and The American President. The American President. I mean, that is essentially what influences The West Wing, that great series. It is aspirational, The American President. How can we achieve the things we need to achieve in life? How can we achieve how can we get to the presidency? How can we make the presidency work for everybody, right? And it's so positive, and it's so moving and touching, and it's what we would like to see in the highest offices of the land, is people caring for everybody, not just whoever is on their political side of things. And it's a beautiful movie in that way, aspirational again in its approach as well. Of course, it starts to become a little bit of, stumble. Not really. Ghost of Mississippi is fine. Story of Us, I thought Story of Us is a good movie, not a great movie. Alex and Emma, yeah, fine. Rumor Has It is okay, not great. The Bucket List that's I love that movie. That's a movie that when my father was passing of cancer, that's a movie that because it was like the movie had come out the year before. That's a movie I watched over and over again. And that I can't listen to that John Mayer song, "Say What You Need to Say." I can never hear that song and not like snap in half if I'm driving in the car alone, because those are those words in that song that just kind of speak the truth about um, losing someone and saying all the things you need to say to them before they go and not getting caught up in the embarrassment of being open about your feelings, And so I thought the movie was a damn good movie, then flipped and ate. I know people like The Magic of Belle Isle, and then LBJ, shock and awe. I loved the documentary he directed, Albert Brooks Defending My Life, a couple of years ago on HBO. Such a great documentary about Albert Brooks. Highly, highly recommend it. And then there's Being Charlie in 2015, which is the film that his son co-wrote with a friend of his from rehab. I think it was 19 when he wrote the script. I think by the time the film he was 22. And you see, if you go on YouTube, you can see interviews with certain sites, certain reporters who were talking with him about the situation and talking with him about what they went through with the addiction and the mental health issues and all of those things throughout that movie, and it's a very sad situation to find yourself in when you're in that addiction cycle with someone that you love. I've never personally experienced that, but I know many friends who have experienced it and gone through it, and live to tell the tale, and had some positive reactions and had some positive situations happen out of it, and other people who are still in that cycle because it never ends, right? Addiction is never over. If you watch any of those, Mom is such an incredible sitcom. If you haven't watched Mom, I think it's on Hulu. You can watch all the seasons on Hulu. Allison Janney, Anna Faris, Jamie Presley, so many great character actresses in that. Eventually, Kristen Johnston comes on. Will Sasso is on there, and he's great for a number of seasons. And even George and Mandy, Emily Osment is on there for a pretty sad storyline for her. But the way they talked about addiction, the way they handled addiction, the way they approached addiction in a sitcom format, I thought was incredible. It's one of my favorite sitcoms ever. It's eminently rewatchable, and it's a way for me to understand what it's like to have an addiction household. And I think there's a lot of elements of what feels organically true to me, even though I've never experienced it, hearing from other people, their journeys with addiction and their journeys in their families with people who have addiction. And so seeing what they go through in that show, because there are some of the episodes that end on a serious note. People die on that show. You lose people on the show. People give in to their addictions on that show. And people you care about give into their addictions on that show. And so it takes you on a journey, even though it's a sitcom format. It's like 22 episodes a season or whatever. You feel for all those characters and the things they go through, and you feel the pain of all of them. And even, what happens to Anna Faris between her and her kids, and that scene with her and her daughter years later when she's hosting a podcast about her mom, and so I thought of that episode as I was hearing about what happened here in this situation with Rob Reiner and his son, Nick, Rob Reiner, his wife, and their son, Nick, and how when you read, and I'm going to read a couple of things here, but when you read about how that movie was received by people and how a lot of people sensed that this was a movie that Rob Reiner directed for his son, but he was trying to somehow achieve closure with his son and move on, which is what seems to be the desperate nature of the movie, of the father in the movie, because it's based on Rob Reiner and his relationship with his son, Nick. And it's played by Carrie Elways of Princess Bride fame, but you see that this is a father who tried all of these avenues to heal his son, and his son is desperately trying to get him to understand that none of those avenues are working. And remember, Nick was an addict since he was 15 years old, from the reports I've read. And so the film itself does not end on a closure that feels satisfactory, and not because it doesn't end in like a little more of a positive note. It's more that it feels like the film has two different points of views warring throughout the whole movie. And from some of the things I read from people who interviewed both Nick and Rob Reiner during the press junkets for the movie, their impressions were that things weren't quite as rosy as Rob was trying to pitch them, and that Nick was uncomfortable in a lot of those interviews. And that's their assessments. And there was a Rolling Stone writer a Hollywood Reporter writer who just posted their story about hanging out with Rob Reiner and his son, with Rob, Michelle, and Nick Reiner. Steven Zaitchik wrote just in the Hollywood Reporter, and he kept his notes from the meeting. And he said by the end of that meeting, I sensed that there was one man who wanted closure and that Nick was a bit unsettled. And I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but a bit unsettled by everything. So what is the sad truth of all of this? And it's just something that affects a lot of families. You hear the stories all the time. You see things like Beautiful Boy, which, if you haven't seen that movie, is a fantastic movie with Steve Carell and Timothée Chalamet, based on the memoir of the father who went through this with his son, and the addiction and the ups and downs they went through. But what you see is that this is a disease that has so many different iterations, and no relationship to addiction is the same, and no journey is the same. There are so many different X factors. And when you look at what happened here, of course, you can speculate and go through all the different things. Was Nick just because from what they're reporting in the New York Post, TMZ, other places, I'd heard this from a couple of my sources last night, that the Rob Reiner and Michelle Reiner, their son Nick, was not in a good place, and they asked Conan O'Brien if they could bring their son to Conan O'Brien's holiday party. And according to some of the reporting here, I think it might be Rolling Stone. Let's see. I think it might be Rolling Stone. No, I don't have that. Where is it? Oh, I know I had it somewhere, so I apologize. But like, he was, they asked Conan if he could bring their son, and apparently Nick came, but everyone else was in like nice clothes, dresses, suits and ties. He showed up in a hoodie. From some of the reports, he stared at people uncomfortably long, and some people were unsettled by his presence at the party. And he talked to almost no one, according to some of the eyewitnesses from that party, except for one person, that is his father. And they apparently got into a loud confrontation at the party, and this may have led to Nick and Michelle Reiner and Rob Reiner there at the house, and led to the murders of Rob and Michelle. And from what the reports are, is it was from a knife, and that both of their throats were slit. So just heartbreaking stuff when you see this, when you hear the story. Because it's such a tragic way for such an influential filmmaker for so many of us in our formative years. It's such a tragic way for him to leave this earth at the hands of a son who he spent his life trying to heal, trying to save, trying to help, and by his accounts, by his own admissions, failing miserably at trying to do it because of numerous factors. And in the film, it's very clear that the thing that he has to accept, the father character, is that they didn't listen to their son when their son said the addiction wasn't working for him. And his son, in real life, Nick, went through periods of homelessness in multiple cities because he was told that if he didn't go to addiction, he couldn't have any money, so he would be homeless. And so that's what ended up happening. So clearly they were told by the people who they were listening to, and I mean that Rob and Michelle, that they essentially cut Nick off cold turkey to make him realize he had to hit rock bottom to find his way out. But that may have been something that damaged Nick for a while. And someone wrote an article, I can't remember who it was, who said that he knew Nick and had spent time with Nick in treatment and therapy and at these rehab places, and had kept in touch with him and had interviewed him on a number of occasions, and talked about his journey through this whole thing. And he had lost touch with him through the last couple of years and had sent him numerous text messages to try to get in touch with him, but didn't hear back from him. And some of the reports you pair that with some of the reports saying that perhaps Nick's addiction had returned and that he was dealing with mental health issues. And that shit never ends, man. I can't speak to addiction, but I can speak for mental health. And once you cross that line and understand you have mental health issues, it never goes away. You always deal with it. You always come to terms with it. You try to use your tools, but the desire to hurt yourself will still pop up every once in a while. The desire to take yourself out will still pop up every once in a while, no matter how much work you've done. I recently had a panic attack, and I haven't had a panic attack in 2 years. And I recently had like 2 or 3 panic attacks in the same day. I could not pinpoint what was going on, but clearly fears of the future, fears for my life, fears of where I'm going next. And they consumed me that day for whatever reason. And so you just never know when this stuff comes for you. And you couple that with addiction and the scars of addiction. And if he was back possibly abusing again, there's just so much involved in that, so many X factors involved in that. And, from the reporting of TMZ, I think they said like the sister was the first one to name Nick. And according to their reporting, Nick disappeared for hours after he had come home with his parents. So clearly he was the one that they were looking for, and they ended up arresting him. And now he's in custody. And we don't know, of course, we don't have the evidence to say yes or no, he's the killer yet. But I'm sure that will come out as this goes along. But it's just tragic. This isn't a murder like someone broke in and killed them and took their stuff. This isn't a political murder, thank God. This is sadly a murder that you see on an episode of Law and Order. Just a kid who possibly got triggered by an argument or by something, and then just the tea kettle exploded, and he did what he did, and allegedly, and he's on suicide watch now, according to the most recent reporting. But it's all just so tragic, and and I got emotional last night a couple of times, just when I was by myself out on the couch, just kind of reading the stuff, because my heart breaks for the families that go through this stuff. Because all they want to do is bring their child back to that place they were before the addiction. And that isn't what always happens. And even if you get them back to that point, it doesn't mean they're going to stay at that point for the rest of their lives, because you never know what life throws at you that sends you tumbling back down into addiction or tumbling back down into the mental health issues and places. It's devastating. It really is devastating and sad. I love this man, fuck. So many of his movies, so many of those scenes have colored my life, have been places that I've run to when I have felt lost or sad, or, going through my own mental health, or going through yet another breakup and wondering why the fuck I can't get it right. I watch When Harry Met Sally, or when I'm, thinking about my youth and thinking about being a chubby kid and what that's like, I watch Stand By Me, and because I'm the Jerry O'Connell character in that film for sure. At that time, not so much now, but certainly at that time, scared chubby kid who didn't want to get in trouble with anything and was bullied. That's all there, or I go back to Princess Bride. Princess Bride is I can recite that movie from the first line to the last line. I'm one of those nerds about that movie. The Rodents of Unusual Sizes, you know, all of this. Of course, the Inigo Montoya speech. Hello, you know, it's just amazing. Or the man with the six-fingered man, or Fezzik, you know, all the stuff that he says. I know I'm going back. Vecini, I'm back to the beginning. All of that. Miracle Max, Billy Crystal, Carol Kane, who are so great as Miracle Max and his wife. Not a witch, I'm your wife. You know, there's so much throughout that movie that is just brilliant. Of course, that's William Goldman's incredible script, but it's also Rob Reiner's direction of these actors. You know, and it was like Robin Wright was a household name, or Carrie Elwes was a household name. These were unknowns, you know, but there's something really sweet in the movie, within the movie, and something sweet outside of the movie, in the movie. And by that, I mean the relationship between Peter Falk and Fred Savage, you know, grandfather with his child. I mean, I'm going to get emotional just thinking about it. Having your grandfather read you a story. I never had that. Both my grandfathers were dead when I was born, but like I got that from my dad reading me stories when I was a kid. You know, it's little things like that that are touchstones for so many of us. And his movies were a place we could run to, right? If you need justice, you watch A Few Good Men. If you want to feel that, you want to watch great acting, if you want to watch fantastic electric scenes between people, you know, written by the great Aaron Sorkin, you watch that movie. If you want to have hope for what we can be as a country, you watch The American President. You know, these are places you go to. If you want to just turn your brain off and have a fun time, this is Spinal Tap. You know, his films provide us so much comfort. And it's heartbreaking because a lot of those films deal with, at times, childish impulses even within the adults, and how to navigate the adult world when you have a childish approach at times to the world. And it's sad that could not come for Nick, that he couldn't find solace in the man who made those movies, you know. And if I'm going to venture a guess, I think Rob wanted to help so bad that at times it consumed him, trying to smother his son with his desire to help. And sometimes there's just no answer, which is really the most tragic part of it all, is sometimes there's just no answer. And for whatever reason, and we don't know, and I'm sure it'll come out as more reporting goes on, we'll find out like what triggered Nick, what he'd been going through, what could have possibly led to all of this. And I'm sure there will be witnesses from the Conan O'Brien holiday party who will tell us specifically what was said between these people, maybe like as anonymous sources, because they don't want, as famous people, they don't want to expose themselves, possibly have some issues with the Hollywood community. But the man leaves an incredible legacy. He leaves just a fantastic legacy. And as I said, a murderer's row of movies to start out his career. And even The Sure Thing, which some people really kind of like as an 80s guilty pleasure, is a lot of fun with John Cusack and Demi Moore. And so, and then what he did after that, right? When he started Castle Rock Productions. I mean, we don't have this sitcom without Rob Reiner. We do not have this sitcom without Rob Reiner. Castle Rock Entertainment produced Seinfeld. So not only do his movies endure for so many of us who grew up at a formative time to appreciate Rob Reiner, something as incredible as Seinfeld came out of Castle Rock Entertainment. Shawshank Redemption, I think The Green Mile, like so many great movies and TV shows came out of Castle Rock Entertainment. And of course, if you know the story of that, he ends up selling it to TBS, and probably, you know, for millions and millions of dollars. And so he, as a Nepo baby, Rob Reiner, was able to find his way through the quagmire of Hollywood, having an incredibly famous dad in Carl Reiner. And sadly, Nick couldn't navigate that as effectively as Rob did. You know, and I think, again, it's all tragic. I'm not blaming Nick for not being able to do it. I'm saying it's just tragic that he couldn't, you know, because here we are with the sad loss of two incredibly intelligent and accomplished and talented people, brilliant people, because of this situation. But Rob Reiner ends up selling Castle Rock Entertainment and then takes that money and becomes someone who puts his money where his mouth is. He becomes a champion for causes. He starts a foundation to help for people who are less fortunate in our society. becomes a voice for the Democratic Party, becomes a voice for social causes. His organization helped to overturn the ban against gay marriage in California. I was just watching snippets of an interview with him and Laura Ingraham. Ingraham posted a really nice tribute to him and said, like, we couldn't disagree more politically. But when I ran into him at a restaurant, we had a wonderful conversation. And he asked if he could come on my show the next night. And he showed up and came on my show the next night. And that's something that, even by example, he was willing to walk into the lion's den of Laura Ingraham and have a back and forth with her. And if you watch the clips, they are totally coming in a respectful way to each other and having the conversations. Yes, little asides, little cracks or whatever is bound to happen. But like overall, it's a discussion between two people from different points of views. And they have it in a respectful way. And that's what you hear from so many people, that Rob was the kind of guy who was nice to everybody, who made everybody feel comfortable, who was like a salt of the earth type of person. A number of people reached out to me today and texted me about their experiences with him on sets and how much of a great guy he was, and how cool he was to everybody, and how he was really just kind of, gregarious in his approach to it. And I think about last night when they see in the videos they posted of Billy Crystal and Larry David in tears walking away from their house. Billy Crystal, according to TMZ, saw the bodies. What devastation that must be for that man to see that of a close friend of his, because they lived down the street and were called by a family friend and rushed over. And so it's just tragic. And this was, I think, wasn't this the first day of Hanukkah or the second day of Hanukkah, just like the Bondi Beach attacks, and so there's just so much about the timing of this, so much about the details of this, so much about the end result of this that is just heartbreaking and devastating and sad. And it feels like we've this past year for so many of us has just been so fucking tough. If you're remotely plugged into what's going on in the world and you're not some, MAGA asshat. And I don't mean that someone who's MAGA isn't. I mean, like one of those people who revels in other people's misery, and spews hateful rhetoric. You feel the pain. You can't feed your children. Prices are going up. Everything costs more. The rhetoric that's out in the universe, in our world now, the political rhetoric, the anger that you see all over the place, it's all just so overwhelming. And then you add something like this in the Christmas Hanukkah season, and it just makes you wonder what more is coming. How much more can we take? Where is the breaking point in our society? Yeah, movies are still coming out. Shows are still coming out. Everyone's dancing around singing carols. But there is this undercurrent of darkness that is pulsating throughout. And I know some of you a lot of you probably watching me right now or listening to me later on the podcast version of this, feel it too. You sense it just on the edges. Some of you are knee deep in it, but some of you are sensing it around the edges. I even had a friend call me today and tell me, for 10 years, I have said that you're wrong about the Civil War or the cracking of our society. But I have to tell you, 10 years later, I feel that you were right all along. This is a friend I trust who was really adamant that I was wrong about it, had hope for our society, and thought the halls of power, the levers of power, the system of checks and balances would all stop what's happening now. But all of those systems have failed us, because someone figured out how the loopholes, with a bunch of people figured out the loopholes in all those systems, got people into positions of power to help to destroy all those systems. And now we're in the situations that we're in. And it's going to get worse, sadly, as he gets more desperate for power, as he gets more afraid of the midterms removing power from him. We are going to see more and more desperate actions. Already, I was reading about over the weekend how ICE is now using travel information of people to arrest them in airports. Like if you buy a ticket and you're an immigrant and you might be illegal, or maybe not even illegal, just you fit the bill, they can pull you off the plane, or as soon as you land, arrest you in the airport. And they've already arrested a few people that way. seeing some of those clips in Minneapolis and in Chicago and all these other places, it's horrific that this Gestapo is being given free license to attack in the most violent and brutal ways and indulge their racism. And then seeing people who are Latinos behind those masks doing the same thing to their own people is just, mind blowing to see that happen. And so it all feels so overwhelming at times, and I wish I wasn't as plugged in. I mean, there are days where I wish I just was not plugged into any of this at all, where I could just sit in my house, working my job on YouTube, working with my friends, hanging out with my incredible partner, and just living my life blissfully. But sadly, that's not the case. And that's not what can happen here. And unfortunately, as he is wont to do, well, before we get into that, we should talk about some of the reactions. I think we should look at some of the reactions so we can be in a positive place about the situation with Rob Reiner before we move away from this topic, which I promise we will do in a little bit. But I just wanted to take a look at some of this stuff and see the tributes that have been pouring in for him, because he's just an amazing person, and people have so much love for Rob Reiner and what he was able to do in this world, and I just hope that these maybe help people feel a little bit better about the situation, but we'll see. I mean, we have tributes from the Princess Broadcast. I'll bring that up here, and we can look at it. Wait, let me see. How can I do it? Yeah, there we go. Let me take this down. Yeah, we see here, Carrie always took to Instagram to share an image of Reiner's director's chair. And next to his, from the set of the film, adding no words, Fred Savage, who was 10 years old when he did Reiner, said, he found me in a casting room in downtown Chicago and gave me the opportunity to be a part of something that has become so much bigger than anyone could have ever imagined. Who knew those 2 weeks in a bedroom set on the Shepperton studio lot would last forever? His work was a gift to us all. I feel lucky to have been part of it. Chris Sarandon, who played Prince Humperdinck, of course, said, changed my life. Rest in peace, Rob Michelle. Mandy Patinkin shared a statement with EW where he said, how do we process this unthinkable tragedy? Loss after loss after loss. What is happening to our world? What is happening to our human race? Of course, Mandy, Jewish, very much a man of his faith. And of course, the Bondi shooting combined with this must have absolutely devastated him. What is happening to our world? What is happening to our human race? We were filming the scene in Princess Bride where Inigo kills the six-fingered man and says, I won my father back, you son of a bitch. Take after take after take, Rob kept asking me to do less, 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 do less. In my sleepless night, I realized he wanted less anger from me to allow my broken heart to be felt. Now I'm hearing his voice tell us all to do more. Do more, do more to repair the human soul, to repair our hearts, to repair our country, to repair our world, to never give up, to keep fighting, to keep living for every soul taken from this earth that no longer has the life and breath to raise their voices for a better world. We must raise our voices for them. I think that's beautiful. And I think that's true. And if there's a legacy to come out of all of this, I hope it's that people feel more motivated to pick up the torch, pick up the flag that Rob Reiner, sadly in his passing, left on the ground, and keep fighting the fight for the people who can't fight for themselves, for the downtrodden in our society, for the people who must have society do better for them, and for the people who are the underserved communities of our society. Now we see Hollywood turning their back in mass to all the story, to a lot of the stories of people of color, to the LGBTQ plus stories, to stories for people who are disabilities. Like all these stories, they're turning their back on these stories. They're not casting because like, oh no, the mood of the country, they don't want this, which is of course utter horseshit. Because the truth is, we do want that. It just has to be done well. And the thing is, that's what you're seeing. But they're of course, because Hollywood will just default to whatever makes the money, and they'll make these generalizations. And so many people of color are losing their projects for a number of reasons, and you're seeing that happen throughout Hollywood. Even the great Ang Lee can't get his Bruce Lee biopic off the ground. Bruce Lee can't get it off the ground, you know? So it's just those things that are happening now in our society. And so we have to remind people that these stories have value, that people will come to see these stories. They will come to enjoy this stuff, Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. I think it's a situation where you're seeing people hopefully rally to this situation and wanting to speak more and be more open and be willing to take. Like I saw a critic friend of mine online today say about a certain person, who we're going to get to their comments, about a certain person posting these horrific words about Rob Reiner. I don't want to give this guy any air, and I don't want to get in trouble. What trouble are you going to get into speaking out about horrific words from a person who is absolutely bitter and destroyed and a petty human being? I would like to know what trouble this critic would get into by speaking about this stuff. Why are we afraid? Why are so many people afraid to speak out and to carry the mantle? Why are so many people afraid? What business opportunities are you losing? And if you are losing them, call them out. Say that this organization didn't want me to go with them because I said something negative about Trump or one of the MAGA politicians, some of the more horrific words. I said something negative about it. So I lost this opportunity. Is that what we're doing? Is that where we're at? I applaud a lot of Republicans today who came out and went against these words. Let's just get to it now. Not waste any time. Thanks for all the Streamlabs super chats people are sending in. Please keep sending them in. I will absolutely answer them here in a little bit. We have, 12 of them now, super chat wise, and a couple of Streamlabs. Please send in your support as we go along. I really would appreciate it. But this is what our president posted. A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. And you think, okay, it's good start. A very sad thing happened in Hollywood. Absolutely. Rob Reiner. And then he goes into his bullshit. A tortured and struggling, but once very talented movie director and comedy star has passed away together with his wife, Michelle. Reportedly, absolutely false. None of this was reported or reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. Now, this is him being cute and being a dick, absolutely a dick, by saying this stuff. And then saying once very talented, as if he stopped being talented. And then he says passed away instead, like they just passed away. You know what I'm saying? There's a bit of insult in that. Reportedly due to the anger he caused in others. It's absolutely false. This has nothing to do with him. Yet this absolutely deranged narcissist, the sociopath, thinks it has everything to do with it because he didn't like Trump and was very vocal about not liking Trump. And he goes on to say he was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald. No one's ever said that. No one's ever publicly said that. There's no evidence of it. But this guy lives in a fantasy land and makes up shit out of his ass. With his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration, there he goes. And then he makes it about himself, right? Surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness. And with the golden age of America upon us, there's no golden age here. People are losing jobs, losing money. Everything's falling apart. There's no fucking golden age. Like never before. May Rob. And then he tries to end it. May Rob and Michelle rest in peace. What the fucking fuck? Like, it's like saying no offense. And then it's like saying no offense and then like leaning in and saying all this negative shit about somebody. Like, and then going, but I wish you well. But I wish you well. But I wish you well. And so it's just as if like he didn't have to comment on it. But God forbid something happen without him attaching himself to it. And it's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And when he was given a chance today at a press conference to clarify the words, to apologize for, to take down the words, he doubled down on it and said that everything he said was right, and then said that, oh, Rob didn't like me. He had Trump derangement syndrome, and all of this negative stuff. And this is where you go, like, what is the point of all of this? Like, why would you say such things? But quite a few people called him out on this stuff. A number of Republicans called him out and didn't agree with him. Piers Morgan, of all people, called him out. I can't play it because I would get a strike or whatever, but like quite a few people called him out for these comments. Quite a few Republicans called him out for these comments. Let's take a look at some of the reactions here to these comments. You have Mick Foley saying, what did he say? He said, how any of my WWE colleagues can stand by, let alone stand next to this man, is beyond me, which I think is a bit of a shot at Triple H, who has stood and taken pictures with him and gleefully taken pictures with Trump. You see that there. And then you have Jack White's words. Jack White he said, Trump, you disgusting, vile, egomaniac, loser, child. Neither he nor any of his followers can defend this gross, horrible insult to a beautiful artist who gave the world so much. To use someone's tragic death to promote your own vanity and fascist authoritarian agenda is a corrupt and narcissistic sin. Yes, he's right. Shame on you, Trump, and anyone who defends this. God bless you, Rob Reiner, and thank you for what you gave the world. I've never even met you, and I still stand by you. Jack White the third, And quite a few people, Rick Wilson called out Trump for this. Josh Gad said, there is no low that is too low for this fucking psychopath. Rob Reiner was 1,000 times the man you are, and unlike you, he actually cared about the American people. Go paint your hand on your gold fucking toilet and destroy things like the White House. That's what you do best. Quite a few people coming out against this. Of course, Senator Mark Kelly. Well, that's a different situation there, but yeah. And I love this takedown from Bill Kristol, who is a Republican, a conservative. 2 babies were born in New York within a year of each other soon after World War II. One, Rob Reiner lived a life of humanity and achievement. He brought us delight and joy. His memory will be a blessing. The other, Donald Trump, will be remembered as an embarrassment to our nation. And that's what you see there with quite a lot of people coming after him. Jack Persibiak, who's a big, MAGA guy, said, you won't see people on the right celebrating the horrific murder of Rob Reiner and his wife compared to left's reaction to Charlie Kirk's murder, which, of course, turned out to be utterly false, as we saw from the president himself, as we saw from thousands of accounts who have posted some of the most horrific stuff on Twitter about Rob Reiner's passing, and people with thousands of followers. Okay, these aren't bots with like 54 followers or 5 followers, thousands of followers, and it's just a shame to see that happening here. Yeah, I love this post from J.L. Cobbin. Slavery, native genocide, Jim Crow, the re-election of Donald Trump. These are the Mount Rushmores of American shame. I have to agree with that situation as well. And then when Mike Johnson had a chance to speak out about this and possibly offer some words to push back on the president, well, what did he say? I don't do ongoing commentary about everything that's said by everybody in government every day. Harry Sisson calls him a coward. If a Democrat said it, he'd be losing his mind. Well, of course. He ran away as soon as he was asked about the question, saying, I don't do online. And that's the thing. There's always a cop-out for these people when they're confronted with the words of their dear Lord and Savior, Donald Trump. There's always a cop-out for Mike. Mike Johnson is always like, well, I didn't see it. I'm busy working on this, and I didn't see it. But if a Democrat does something at 3 a.m. in the morning in the darkest of nights in an alley with no light in it, he's going to hear about it. He's going to know about it. He's going to comment on it. And that's the sad truth of it, is that there's no honesty even in a situation like this. Like I said, I applaud the Republicans that have spoken out in this. I think Rand Paul spoke out of this. As I said, Piers Morgan, Laura Ingraham posted a nice tribute to Rob Reiner as well. So there are quite a few people that did. And sadly, this person in charge of us. And the real fucking terrible thing was Mark Wayne Mullen coming out and defending this. And I saw the person on the Piers Morgan. I don't know who that grifting MAGA opportunist is on Piers Morgan, that blonde. She was defending the word, saying, well, he meant it in a positive way. He just didn't do it. He didn't say it quite as well as he should have, but he meant it as a honor to Rob Reiner. I was like, you're a nutball, then you're just grifting for money. Mark Wayne Mullen, same thing. He's like, if the president said anything wrong, he wished them well. He said, rest in peace. That's a positive. So this is the thing where we're so lost with our discourse that nonsense like that just corrupts our interactions and corrupts our moments of grief and pain and sadness. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the end result of all of this is. But I hope people are inspired by his passing to carry the torch and be louder and get in the arena and stop being afraid to get in the arena and fight. And I don't mean fight physically. I mean fight with all the tools available to you in our political system. Because if we don't fight, if we don't get together and fight, it eventually will come for all of us. Especially all the people on YouTube, all my fellow colleagues who don't want to say anything, who want to keep all their subscribers and their patrons and their viewers and all of that stuff so they can keep making their money. Eventually, it will come for you. Who thought CBS would go full MAGA like they did over the weekend with that ridiculously staged and rehearsed and planned interview with Erica Kirk from Bari Weiss? There you go. One of the top premier news organizations has been corrupted by that approach. What do you think your little rinky-dink YouTube channel is going to do once this situation keeps spreading? Eventually you're going to have to cape for that, man, in order to keep your channel. And I know people have said to me, "Oh, you're crazy, Rocha, saying all this stuff." And then all this stuff fucking starts to happen. All this stuff comes true. Remember, Jeff said to me, "Oh, Trump's not going to care about stuff like a TV show or anything." What happened? And even Jeff had to admit that I was right. When you study history, you see what authoritarians do. You see what they do with the press. You see what they do with the media. You see what they do with any dissent. And it's sad to see it happening. And it's because it's so unnecessary. He did not have to post something that mean. He just could have just said, "My heart's." That's the thing that's frustrating. There is a moment for him to do better, and he always fails at the moment. He always fails at the moment because it's all about him. He has to make it. And sadly, he has so many sycophants around him that they all just kind of giggle and enjoy that kind of anger and meanness. So it's a shame on so many levels, sadly. All right, let's see here. Mr. Nico 28 Soccer, and we'll answer some of these and then move on to other things. But I should say, rest in peace, Rob Reiner, and your lovely wife, Michelle. Thank you very much for all the art you put into our world. Because I think now more than ever, we need it. We can go back to it. We can relive it. We can embrace it again, and really appreciate the greatness of what you did and the movies that will live in our hearts forever. The characters, the lines, the scenes, the interactions, the lessons, the themes of those movies will live in our hearts forever. And thank you. And they can be passed on to multiple generations, and I know they have been already. And there's no greater legacy for a filmmaker than having his films or her films passed on generation to generation. That's what happens with the great ones. And Rob Reiner was a great one. And sadly, we lost him to a terrible tragedy with his family. And my heart breaks for everybody in his family, his other kids, even Nick, because addiction and mental health are horrible diseases in combination, separately, but in combination can be utterly devastating. And God knows what he is going through, maybe realizing what he's done and indulging that moment of anger and rage. So it's just sad all around and tragic all around, honestly. All right, let's move on to some of these questions here, and we'll get into Avengers, and we'll get into Rian Johnson and some other stuff here as we head to the second hour of the show. Mr. Nico 28 Soccer says, "Hi, John. About to embark on LA to Chicago and back for holiday fun with my 11-month-old puppy. Oh, nice. Just want to say thank you for the year. You and your work are appreciated. Much love to you and your Rose." Oh, thank you, Nico. I appreciate that very much. I never know how many people are going to watch the shows. And sometimes I get in my head, I'm like, who's going to watch? I don't know if people are going to watch. So I talk myself out of doing shows. My resolution in 2026 is to do more shows like this, put myself out there. Maybe 5 people watch, maybe 500 people watch, or anything in between or more. But I want to, have the guts to get back out there again. I kind of have allowed my own mental health struggles to affect my confidence, affect my desire to do these shows. And I want to push through that and come out the other side. Yeah, I wish I could be like other people you see in the space who always are doing shows every day and doing it like they're determined to do it. So I need to get into that rhythm and be willing to fall on my face on some shows, but eventually learn how to rise above all of it and do good shows. So thank you very much for watching all my stuff, Nico, and have a safe trip. And be careful with that puppy. 11-month-old puppy is not anything to be careless about. So I hope you guys have a great time on your trip there, brother. Thank you, Isaac Rocky. Appreciate the donation. Very kind of you. Kyle Razy, 2001 says, after watching Knives Out 3, which I loved, I can't help but feel serendipity out seeing the loss of Reiner and his wife. Right. It's so sad seeing families torn apart by violence and addiction. Shit, I didn't think about that. How do you enact grace in your life? Oh, I think it's always it's a journey. It's a process. And how you enacted grace in your life in your 20s is not how you enact grace in your life in your 30s or your 40s or 50s. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you just find a way of doing things and it works for you for the rest of your life. But I think things, outside factors, X factors, life changes, lifestyle changes, all those things can affect you as you go into the decade. So I always say and encourage people who really want to find peace that it is a never-ending process. And there are so many people who have suggestions and books and programs and patterns. Therapy is really important. But I always come back to meditation. Meditation is the number one thing. You can even you can practice grace meditation where you are giving grace for the things that you have in life. I've been doing that at night now. When I go to bed, I say in my head, thank you, God, for another day of life. Thank you to the universe for this incredible woman who's laying next to me. Thank you for being able to do the things that I'm doing in this world. Thank you for giving me the brains and the ability and some measure of interest from people to see my stuff and watch my stuff, because it's a blessing. And I'm practicing gratefulness when I get into bed. And grace is something that I'm working on, because you guys know I'm not always the best at that kind of stuff. And when people come at me, I'm ready to go. And 2026 is going to be the year of not responding back to people in a violent or angry way. In an angry way, I guess, not violent, because I don't get violent. I haven't been violent well over 20 years, but like in a mean way. And so that's the grace that I work. Is like, okay, where's this person coming from, right? And so I'm trying to practice that more and more. Like today in the car, I was parking and I saw this man just walk right in front of my car as I was going into the spot, completely like just did not care that I was going to the spot. And I almost yelled out the window, and then I looked at him and I was like, man, he's probably lost in his own shit. He's probably lost in his own world. He might not be happy about his life. Yeah, maybe he's a selfish prick who thinks he's owed everything he's got. But I want to create grace in my head that this is a person who is going through things and is clearly not paying attention, not focused on it, or a bit self-destructive by putting himself in the path of a car as he walks. So these things I have to do better. And look, the Lady Outlaw is always trying to get me to come from a place of grace when I'm out in the car. And I need to practice that more and more when I'm online, because I do find myself at times going toe to toe with people. And it's like, what am I doing? Why am I wasting time with this? Right. And so that's got to stop. That's got to stop. Isaac Rocky back again saying, I love Reiner's movie, The American President. Yes. Andrew Shepard says in his closing speech, I can tell you without hesitation, being president of this country is entirely about character. Yeah. 100%, my man. 100%. Yeah, that's important. I mean, we're in a little bit of hell right now with the person who is in charge of our country with his character. And we hope for better character to assume the office so that more people can have a better life in our country. And we'll see what happens, because we have to show up to vote. We have to show up to fight. We have to show up to vote out those elements that would have nefarious intentions when they get into power. And we're seeing already how much losing is being done by the Republican side of things. And not all Republicans are bad, of course. Obviously, I'm not saying that, but so those who are aligned with Trump, they're taking a lot of losses lately in elections and what have you. So I think that's a positive sign. Got to keep it going. He's going to get more and more desperate, as many people are already speculating. And this latest call for the filibuster is absolutely an extension of that. And we'll see where that leads us. Alan Smithy, what's up, Smithy? Says just a terrible tragedy on all levels. I agree, brother. It's just a terrible tragedy. I hope Reiner's life will be remembered for all his heart, talent, and love. Hope his son regrets this act and finds some sort of way to seek redemption. It's a great and very sweet comment from you, Smithy, for sure. I'm sure his siblings, some of the interviews I read about when his younger sister, Nick's younger sister, I think is 2 years younger than him, would go on these interviews and the junkets, there was a sense of like feeling like this is a, a, a brother she loves, but a brother she's also wary of. So I hope there's a way out. But again, addiction, mental health, this is a struggle for the rest of his life. Just because Nick comes to terms with this stuff, goes to rehab, goes to jail, it does not mean that he's going to find his way out of it. And it does not mean that just because he does, he's going to permanently stay out of it, which is an unfortunate truth when it comes to mental health and addiction, for sure. But yes, I think Reiner will be remembered for all the heart, talent, and love, Smithy, in the long run, because his movies are just undeniable for what they do for people, man. KJ7457, good to see you. Saying, do you believe in emotional cheating, or do you believe that cheating only has to do with sex? That's quite a question. Yes, I have to say I do believe in emotional cheating. I do believe cheating. Yes, sex, of course, that is the most obvious one. But I think emotional cheating. I don't want to stereotype, but certainly from what I have spoken to with women in the past, if a man cheats and falls in love with someone else, that is more devastating to them than if they cheated on them physically. I have found that from a number of women who have told me that through their experiences when I've asked them about this kind of stuff. With the male side of things, I have to believe most men are more broken to have a woman cheat on them physically than a woman cheat on them emotionally. So that's my belief, but I'm from a different time. I'm from an older time, and that's kind of how I see things. But I'm sure every variation under the sun is true for certain people. So, but I do believe emotional cheating is as bad as cheating with physical stuff for sure. Andrew Brown 9981 says, they should have recast Kang instead of going to Doctor Doom and not include a very important part of Doctor Doom, his hatred and envy of Reed Richards. Well, we'll see what Doomsday brings us. I mean, they might avoid all of that completely because Fantastic Four was not received that well. It has the lowest numbers of any recent Disney debut on Disney Plus, which is sad to see. So clearly, Pedro Pascal's Reed Richards is not resonating with the Marvel audience as strongly as they were hoping. So why would you explore their envy if people aren't necessarily feeling that Reed Richards? So if you move it over to Cap and make it about Cap, which we're going to talk about a little bit, I think that's where you might have more emotional terrain to explore and navigate, especially because Dr. Doom is going to look like Tony Stark. So it just makes all the sense in the world that you would go that route instead of with Pedro Pascal. But I hear you that they could have gone another route and made it better, but they didn't. Doug Developer, what's up, Doug? Says, thank you for recommending The Pit. Yeah, fantastic show. Saw clips of ER with Noah Wiley when he looked like a baby. Overall thoughts on ER and him on the show. Oh, he was great on the show. I was just not an ER person. Some of you are old enough to remember this, but I was a Chicago Hope person, which had Alan Arkin, Mandy Patinkin. I think Roxanne Hart was the name of the main woman on that show, and quite a few other. Adam Arkin, Alan Arkin's son. He was the main guy on the show. And I loved Chicago Hope. It debuted at the same time as ER, but I was more of a Chicago Hope guy because I felt that they were telling deeper stories than ER. ER felt to me like fast food, and Chicago Hope was a meal. And so, but ER is the one that ended up winning because they had so many great actors in George Clooney, in Juliana Margulies, and Noah Wyle. I think Sherry Stringfield was on for a bit. So quite a lot of actors starting out with ER that laid the groundwork for ER. And then for all those years that came afterwards, all those other actors that came on to play series regulars, including I can't forget the Indian actress from, or is that Grey's Anatomy? I get them confused sometimes. From Bend It Like Beckham. Maybe that's Grey's Anatomy. I think it's ER, but maybe that's Grey's Anatomy. Either way, ER. So yeah, I think he was great on the show. But I know a lot of people love the show. Just was never my cup of tea, but I totally respect it. Wiley OFC says, "What's up, Wiley? Good to see you, man." He says, "The death of Rob Reiner has destroyed me all day." Yeah, brother. Last night I tried to fall asleep listening to the cinephiles of his movies. Watched A Few Good Men today. Feel more current today than ever. That's right. Thank you, Rocha. You're my hero. Oh, thank you. That's very kind. I'm obviously, I appreciate that. I'm always unsettled by that kind of praise because I have a lot of flaws and I've overcome a lot of things. And so sometimes I'm not as good to myself as I need to be. So when you say things like that, I appreciate it madly. But I always feel like self-conscious about that stuff. But thank you very much for mentioning the Cinephiles. I can't believe I've gone a whole hour without talking about it. But yes, we've done a number of Rob Reiner episodes on the Cinephiles. When Harry Met Sally, Misery, which one of the most recent ones was Misery. We did this a Spinal Tap. We'll be re-releasing those as the very soon. Because we have plans, which we're going to announce when we do our next show or our next live show. We have plans for how we're going to honor Rob Reiner. And I hope people like our plans for it because Steve and I spoke about it today on the phone. Because I texted him and said, we need to talk about this. We need to figure out how we're going to honor him and tribute him and give a tribute and do something the Cinephiles way. And Steve jumped on the phone with me and we had a great conversation about it. And so we'll make announcements very soon about it. But thank you very much for listening to the episodes, brother. And A Few Good Men is absolutely in our future. I will say that right now. A Few Good Men is absolutely in our future. Wiley says, I lost a brother this year to drug addiction. Oh my God, I'm sorry, Wiley. His addiction has affected my whole life. And getting this news, I want this year to be over with. F 2025. I hear you, man. I'm so sorry, Wiley. As I said, I know a lot of people who've gone through this. I know Christian, and other people who have gone through the cycles of addiction with family members. But fortunately for me, I've never been touched by that. But hearing the stories of other people who've gone through it, my heart aches and breaks for them because it's a horrible thing because you love the person so much and you want that person to find their way out of the madness. And then you hope that, and then you're on constant, you're vigilant constantly to make sure they don't slide back into it. And sometimes you're bending over backwards. There's resentment. Sometimes there's anger from them. And then you say like, I've done all this for you. Why can't you snap out of it? And they say, is this the reason you did it just for yourself? And so it becomes a cycle, and so you hope, because the people that climb out of addiction see the light of day, do the work, and are vigilant about the work and are disciplined about the work because they don't want to slide back into that place. So, but Wiley, my heart breaks for you, my man. I'm sorry for you, but I'm sorry for your family. Honestly, I'm sorry for you. And I'm sorry for your brother who sadly lost his struggle with the drug addiction. Kyle Ray says, how could anyone be angry at a Conan party? I don't know, man. I don't know. But clearly there were issues going on between Nick and his father and his mom that exploded there. And you wonder, like, if Rob didn't take Nick to the party, what could have happened? But maybe he was trying to take Nick to the party so that he could, see some joy, see some happiness, see people he's known for a long time, and maybe find his way back to a better place. Maybe this was an attempt to try to help Nick to re-embrace a life. I don't know. So it's a shame overall, all around. Gallia Production says, probably your best episode yet. We should chat heart to heart sometimes. Oh, thank you, Gallia. It's very kind of you. I appreciate that. And thank you for the kind donation. And I appreciate that. I mean, I almost didn't go live tonight. I went back and forth about it all day. But I felt I needed to talk about it. And I like hanging out with you guys. I like having discussions with you all and back and forth with you all. So thank you very much for taking a chance to come out with me tonight and hang out with me tonight. Dennis, what's up, Dennis? He says, R.I.P. Rob Reiner. Truly despicable comments by Trump. Fucking garbage. Yeah, it really is. And it just adds more to the tragic nature of it all and adds more to the feeling of overwhelmed sadness and anger. And it's so unnecessary. And I think this is him he's trying to poke until the reaction that they all seem to want from his little group of people. They want to have people react violently and angrily so they can finally trot out the military officially, cancel elections, go into people's houses, go into people's homes, violate people's privacies, go into their internet search histories, go into they want to control you all. And it's so mind-blowing to see so many Republicans who are the party of small government, who have said for years it's the Democrats who want to violate our privacy. They want to figure out what we're doing. They want to put little spies in our stuff. But in the end, it is absolutely the MAGA and Trump people who are trying to do that to control all of us and try to make us bend to their will and then lie to us that we live in a democracy. And that's the sad truth of it, bro. Kyle Ray says, Rocha for president, or at least a role as FDR. I mean, if that guy can be president, I feel like anybody can be president, to be honest with you. So, but it would just take so much, man. And at my age, I don't know that I have the strength to do it or the patience to do it, but I appreciate it. It's very kind of you, man. KJ745 says, when you just want to laugh to relieve a stressful day, what show or movie do you watch? Family Guy always brings a smile to my face. Well, to laugh, I always watch Frasier or Cheers. Those are for me, those are just untouchable sitcoms. I know everybody loves Seinfeld or even Golden Girls, which I think is one of the greatest sitcoms ever made. One of the most tightest written scripts of any sitcom are the Golden Girls sitcom. But Frasier and Cheers always cheer me up. I mean, Frasier's just funny. It's so well written. And yes, I know ironically it is Kelsey Grammer, a big Trump supporter, but I didn't know it at the time, and I can separate the art from the artist and watch it and just enjoy the show because of all the great characters in it, aside from Frasier. And Cheers, because Cheers is everybody getting together at the local bar and going on weird little adventures within the bar and occasionally outside the bar, and always leading to some great comedy. So I always turn to those shows when I want to laugh. I don't turn to many movies much anymore for humor. I don't know that I turn to humor a lot of movies that are funny anymore. It's more TV shows for sure. But I hear you on Family Guy. A lot of people love Family Guy. Kyle Raisy says Fox and the Hound or Robin Hood Disney remake or both. Ooh, Robin Hood? Yeah, more than Fox and the Hound. I know people kind of have a revisionist history on Fox and the Hound. I wasn't a big fan of it when it came out in the 80s, but certainly I like the Robin Hood much more than Fox and the Hound of the Disney films, for sure. Let's see. We got a Streamlabs. Wait, where are we? Here we go. Let me take down this comment. Thank you guys for the 16 super chats. Please keep sending in as many as you can. We're going to move on to Avengers here in a second. Doug Developer says, John, greetings from Poland. Oh, you're in Poland now. Wow. I visited Schindler's factory and was moved by his financial sacrifices to save Jews. That's very touching, brother. With ICE and now that a soon-to-be trillionaire wants Somalis deported, we need a Cinephiles episode on Schindler's List now more than ever. Yeah, we will see. That's one we've discussed many, many times, Steve being Jewish and me being an honorary Jewish person, as Steve is named me. We have definitely talked about Schindler's List for quite some time. We will see when we do it. And it's always one that Steve has to kind of come to when he's ready to come to it, because of course it affects him much more than me religiously, ethically. So we will do it when he's ready to do it for sure. But I hear you, dog. I appreciate the request. Lou said, your thoughts, your efforts, your shows are appreciated. Oh, thank you, Lou, for the very kind donation. My God, thank you, Lou. That's very nice of you, my friend. I appreciate it. It's very, very kind of you. Kyle Reyes 2001 says, your show is the closest to fireside chats. Oh, the FDR stuff. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, man. I don't even remember the fire. Do you remember the fireside chats? Are you old enough to? Am I talking to someone who was around when FDR was president, like in the 1940s? Please let me know. Or are these fireside chats available somewhere for people to watch and relive the glory days of FDR? I would love to know, man. You know. Karen says, I'm also Jewish, Rocha. I'm Jewish also, Rocha. Respect, Karen. Thank you. Yes. So between Winston and Steve, is Rocha invited to both the cookout and the Hanukkah? Maybe. And also Michael Vogel is Jewish on our show. So hopefully I'm invited to Hanukkah. I would love to go to Hanukkah someday. We will see. All right, I'm gonna take a sip here. I haven't drank anything for an hour and a half, for God's sake. So all right. I'm just an old soul. I like that. I respect that. All right, let's move on to some other stuff. Let's move on to Avengers Doomsday. So the the trailer leaked. I don't know if you guys saw it today. I'm gonna try not to spoil anything, but the trailer did leak today. It is Captain America focused. I'm not gonna post any pictures of it. But it was clear that it leaked online, and you saw there that it was a bit of, I don't know how they got their hands on it. I don't know how they got access to that trailer, because I don't think it's out yet, because it's supposed to come out with Avatar, but somehow they got their hands on that trailer. And the teaser, you see Captain America in the teaser, you see what he is experiencing anew. But it's such a bad version of the trailer, right? It's like a recorded on an iPhone, not even a good recording of it. And it's not long. It's like an hour and 15, or sorry, a minute and 15, minute 17, something like that. And it's just to tease you what's coming, right? I remember Chris Evans said for a long time he wasn't going to be in it. Well, clearly he's in it. So that's what you see. The specifics of what's in the trailer, you guys can take a look at and see, because there are people who are watching, I think, who don't want to have it spoiled for them. So I don't want to spoil it for them. But I thought that was an interesting little trailer. And for me, I don't think people are going to be as excited about this first trailer, because it's just like him coming back. And that's clearly leaked all over the place, all over the internet. So I don't know how many people are going to be surprised by it. The images are interesting, edited. It's not a full scene, so it's more like an announcement he's coming back. And there are certain clips from the movie in it that he's connected to. But what we see, there's a couple of surprising moments in it. And I was surprised to see what they're opening the door to. And if what they're opening the door to is what I think they're opening the door to, it's going to be an interesting thing to see how people react to it and what they feel about the whole situation when it gets revealed. But we've got descriptions for the other trailers as well. First Avengers Doomsday trailer leaked online earlier today. Now we have details about what's next. The Captain America centric. Can you tell I like my Adidas sneakers? Can you tell I like my Adidas sneakers? Is this better? No, I guess I'm always trying to find the right. I guess this is the best thing. I'll just take down the banner. I run my own show, everybody. I don't have a full scale operation here, so I have to do it myself. I know there are other people who are much more professional about this stuff, and I appreciate them, but they can afford it. I cannot. Anyway, the first Avengers Doomsday trailer leaked online earlier today, and now we have details about what's next. Now, I'm going to read this, so I want to make sure you guys are okay with me reading this. Feel free to turn me down and come back up when I go on to another subject. But the Captain America-centric sneak peek will play in front of Avatar Fire and Ash this weekend. And in week 2, the spotlight shifts to Thor. The news comes our way from Feature First and My Time to Shine. Hello, my brother out there. He said, whose description of the Steve Rogers teaser was 100% correct, has said that it shows the god of thunder in the woods praying to Odin before a big battle to bring him back safely to his daughter. And of course, we saw his daughter in Love and Thunder, by the end of Love and Thunder. So the third teaser will focus on Robert Downey's Doctor Doom, These are nice. I like these. We don't have any details on that, but it will be the last of these character-focused sneak peeks. And the fourth teaser is a full-blown trailer. And we'd imagine this will be the one that gets an online release in the new year. We only have an audio description, but here's how it's laid out. All right, so I don't want to read this unless you guys tell me I should read this. Like, should we take a poll? I should pull this down, so I don't want people to. But should we take a poll? Do you guys want me to read this? I don't know. Do you guys want me to read this? Oh, My Time to Shine Hello is a girl. That's right. You're right. I keep forgetting that. I keep getting My Time to Shine Hello confused with Daniel RPK. My apologies. Thank you. What do you guys think? Do you guys want me to read this? Let me know. I'm going to give it about a minute, 60 seconds. If you guys want me to read it, I'll read it. If you don't want me to read it, okay. Seneca. Okay, Jalen. All right. All right, read it. It's just a trailer. Okay. All right. If you guys are cool with it, then I'm warning people who are watching later, like if this is where you can just skip past this moment. So I am going to read it. So you can turn me down for a couple of minutes. So sorry, Michael. So, all right, here we go. So this is what it is. The trailer starts off quite ominous and slow, but not quite dark, as there is a glimmer of hope. More notes play slowly, beginning to play off as reminiscent of the music at timestamp 221 of Venom's second trailer. The trailer then ramps up a bit and sounds a little similar to the Thunderbolts Absolute Cinema trailer, where it has club-like vibe, but not with the same energy, coming off as more repressed. The music is slower, deeper, like a heartbeat. The music then transitions into a typical montage-type pace. The music then ramps up again, getting quite powerful, seemingly in order to elicit emotion, with our source likening it to Avengers-like. So not anything spoiled in there that is hero-related, but you're hearing music, and the pacing of the trailer is what's being described here. My Time to Shine Hello, a girl, says, has since said that there's a strong theme of fatherhood in Avengers Doomsday. Steve has a son, Thor has a daughter, and Doom lost his son and is seeking revenge for him. Also, Reed and Franklin. Well, that makes a lot of sense because they want to go back. Okay, yeah. So let's stop there. So that makes a lot of sense. The idea of going to fathers and sons and the themes of fathers and sons makes a lot of sense, because that's what the first phases of Marvel really leaned into, until, of course, people started giving them shit for that and saying, what about the female characters? What about the female storylines? What about the mother and daughter stuff? You know, there was all kinds of crap that was not crap. I'm sorry, I don't want to say crap because I'm not trying to diminish people's feelings about it, because I think they rightfully pointed out that the Marvel had become too father-son heavy. We needed other storylines because they were becoming repetitive. But yes, quite a few people pointed that out, and so they changed it, and they moved away from the father-son stuff. I mean, I loved it in Thor Ragnarok when Odin dies, and Thor says to and Thor and visits Thor, and Thor, is like, I don't think I can do it. And he's like, you can do it. You're better. He said, I'm not as good as you. And he's like, no, you're better. And that scene wrecks me every time, because that's what you always want to hear from your father, is that you can be a better version of him and still be your own person, because you carry his lessons with you if you have a good father. So that's the thing with what you're seeing there. So you saw a lot of that in the first few. I mean, Tony and his dad. I don't think you saw much of Steve Rogers and his dad. There was not necessarily that father-son connection, but he did have it with the mentor in terms of the Stanley Tucci character. But yeah, you saw that throughout. So it'll be curious to see how much they lean into this stuff. And I think it'll be curious to see how people react to it, that it becomes a Captain America movie, a Doctor Doom movie, which is essentially Tony Stark, and the Thor situation, so that Marvel is essentially going back to the old team in order to save the overall franchise. Will people be upset about that? And will they be able to incorporate the new people into the films as well as they are hoping? So there's going to be a lot to see a lot to prove when these films come out. And of course, the first one, Doomsday, is coming out in December of next year, and then Secret Wars December of the year after there in 2027. So we will see. We will see when we look at all of this stuff. So yeah. So, but the trailer is out. If you guys want to watch it, feel free to watch it. I'm not going to play it here because I would get in trouble for that. But the trailer is out for those of you who want to watch it. All right, let's move on to this story. Where is it? Did I not post this picture? I thought I had a picture of this. Maybe not. Hold on. Let me see if I've got this story. Yes. Is this one? I think this works. Yeah, there he is. Boom! Just when you thought we were done with Rian Johnson, he is not done with us. Rian Johnson had a good weekend with Wake Up Dead Man and Knives Out Mystery hitting Netflix on Friday, quickly debuted as #1 on the streamers charts. The film is also earning the best reviews of the series. And now he wants to talk about Star Wars. Speaking with Polygon, let's follow along. Let me bring up this article and we can follow along together. Speaking with Polygon. Oh, wait, let me take that down and take this down. All right. And let's see, where is it at here? Okay, let's make it a little bigger. Speaking with Polygon, Johnson continues to defend The Last Jedi. Of course he did. And not only that, he argues that Star Wars, to succeed, it must take the very kinds of risks he took. Backlash be damned. He says, having grown up a Star Wars fan, I know the thing where something challenges it. And I know that thing where something challenges it. And I know the recoil against that. I know there can be infighting in the world of Star Wars, but I also know that the worst sin is to handle it with kid gloves. The worst sin is to be afraid of doing anything that shakes it up, because every Star Wars movie going back to Empire and onward shook the box and rattled fans and got them angry and got them fighting and got them talking about it. And then for a lot of them, got them loving it and coming around on it eventually. And I think he's referring to the prequel series when he says that. Yeah, but World Jordan rightfully points out, for a large portion of the Star Wars fan base, The Last Jedi crossed the line. They never believed the series would approach. Johnson's bold subversions, Luke Skywalker rejecting the Jedi legacy, the handling of race parentage, the treatment of legacy characters, and the film's apparent dismissal of long-held lore felt to some like a betrayal rather than a reinvention. There was simply no way Johnson would be given the keys to another trilogy without the approval of Bob Iger, even though Kathleen Kennedy gave him the green light. I think this is an interesting point for one reason only, and that is reinvention, new approaches. These are the things that keep franchises alive. If you look at what's going on with Predator, right? Like Prey, Killer of Killers, and now Badlands have completely revitalized the franchise. Now, Badlands didn't make $500 million, but it accomplished what it needed to accomplish, just like Superman did, which also didn't make $1 billion. But it got people excited about the franchise again, for the most part. And that is what you want these movies and these TV shows to do, especially when you're reinventing a franchise or as Rian Johnson says, shaking things up. Now, do I think Rian Johnson is the guy that should be telling us to shake things up? No, I don't, because I don't like Last Jedi. Well, how can I say this? I don't like the first 30, 40 minutes of Jedi, then the Canto Bight scene. No thanks. But it's the last, from the Holdo maneuver on, I enjoy The Last Jedi. God, I'm due for a rewatch on that one. But I don't think that Rian Johnson is the guy who should be coming in here trying to tell us that we need to shake up Star Wars. And I don't think anybody who's there now is going to shake up Star Wars, sadly. You know, I think Gilroy did an incredible job shaking up Star Wars with Andor. I think Favreau definitely deserves his flowers for what he did with Mando and Grogu. But I don't think many people are. I don't think Filoni wants to shake up Star Wars. I don't think Kathleen Kennedy wants to shake up Star Wars, or maybe she did with Rian Johnson and then saw the backlash and didn't want to keep going down that road, even though she promised him a trilogy, which we're never going to see. But the question becomes, is he right in saying this? And I would say yes. But is he the person to be saying this? I would say no. Because of the connotations with Rian Johnson. And I know some of you loved Last Jedi. I totally respect that. But like, it's a divisive figure. And you can go back to that movie splintering the fandom in half. And the fandom ever since has been fighting off the toxic elements that introduced themselves into the fandom. Now, of course, we've always had battles. People have always, and the fact that Empire Strikes Back is not the most well-reviewed of all the Star Wars movies is mind-blowing to me. That is the best Star Wars movie, bar none. Some people think TLJ is the second greatest Star Wars movie, which I think is insane. Rogue One is much better. But of course, we all have our picks. Some people have Return of the Jedi as their favorite Star Wars movie, or even the original Star Wars movie as their favorite Star Wars movie. And I wouldn't fault them. And certainly the younger generations have come through and might even try to convince you that Phantom Menace is their favorite, or Attack of the Clones, even, or oh my God, I can't remember the last one. Yeah. They're from the prequel trilogy. They might try to convince you of that. Revenge of the Sith. They might try to convince you of that one as well. So there is all kinds of approaches to Star Wars from the people's perspectives, but Star Wars has tried to do things differently. I mean, Ahsoka was an attempt to try to do something different. What was the Resistance? That animated show was trying to do something different. Mandalorian Grogu was trying to do something different and succeeded, and Andor succeeded. So they can shake things up. If the thing is finding the right creators to A, shake things up, and B, deliver a good end product. That's where the disconnect has been. A, yes, then B doesn't necessarily live up to expectations. I know some people don't agree with me on this, but I think The Acolyte was Leslie Headland's attempt to shake things up. I think there is a desire to shake things up in Star Wars from the people within Star Wars. The problem is they get scared. It's like that person who's like, oh, yeah, totally move in with me. And then the second you start moving in, they're like, oh, God, what have I done? Oh, you know what? Don't move in with me. And that's what is going on here, or the person who says, I'm totally going to do it. I'm totally going to do it. I know I'm going to do it. The day comes for them to do it, and they can't do it because they chicken out. And so I think that's what's going on with this kind of stuff. I think there is an instinct to shake things up in Star Wars. The problem is there's not necessarily the follow through, or that the end product gets watered down because the people who are in charge are afraid of shaking things up with Star Wars. Leslie Headland wanted to tell The Acolyte from the Sith point of view, essentially calling the Jedi into question, calling the Force into question, calling anybody who is supposedly in the light into question at a time when they're not tied to the Skywalker story or any of that stuff. They could have just been on their own doing it. But Star Wars, I think, got scared. Filoni got scared, changed things on her, made her go the young adult route. That's my belief. And we got this series that wasn't that great, and Filoni getting involved with Ahsoka started out strong first couple episodes and then boom, fell flat on its face by the end. And so this is the thing. You can't shake things up if you don't have risk takers who are willing to see it through. And it doesn't seem like they're willing to see it through. Look at Trachtenberg. They told him to shake up Prey. He shook it up by going all the way to the Native American years and having a Native American woman as the lead of the film. That is shaking things up and getting the job done. Yes, there are some, small dick incels who got upset about that, but overall it worked. Then Killer of Killers came out to do a animated show that is vignettes in different times where predators existed. Phenomenal stuff. Then Predator Badlands, which is a way of linking up to Alien with the Weyland-Yutani and all of that. So those are shaking things up. Alien Romulus shook up Alien franchise, so there is a possibility. It's just Star Wars is so important to people that when you try to shake things up, people immediately like, no, don't change what I love. And then 5 minutes later, why don't you do something different? And you just can't win. You just have to be successful with the end product. That's the only way. I guess you can win in one way, and that is to be successful with the end product like you were with Andor, even though some people hate Andor. Laura Kelly, my co-host on the Jedi Way, is no fan of Andor season 1 and was okay with Andor season 2, but it wasn't much better for her. So you just, everyone's tastes are different. And so I think this is an interesting situation to look at. We'll see where it all goes when it pops off, so to speak. All right. So we'll see. We'll see what shakes up. And guys, see Wake Up Dead, man. I liked that movie. I liked the cast in that movie. It was a lot of fun. Let's move on to this. How about this? This was a great trailer that dropped yesterday or today. I didn't get a chance to react to it because of timing and everything like that. And everything was going on. I put out my interview with Luciano Bacchetta, who is the race choreographer for F1. Let me take that down. Let me put this up. This interview is up right now. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. This interview is up right now where I talked with Luciano Bacchetta, who is the race choreographer for F1. And he was amazing and so much fun to talk to about Brad Pitt, about Damson Idris, about the races they choreographed. This is the video. It's up. It's only 8 minutes, the interview. And we had a fun time talking about all the things that happened on the set and all the ways that he choreographed the races, how he worked with Joseph Kaczynski, and what goes into choreographing a race. And also how quickly Brad Pitt and Damson Idris took to the driving and all the things they went through. So I didn't have a chance to react to that trailer because I was editing that most of the afternoon before I put it up at 2:00. But this trailer was awesome. Absolutely awesome. So many incredible visuals throughout this trailer. Just seeing the upside down, hearing how what they knew about the upside down was completely off. Sadie Sink's character there being a part of it, and the young girl there, the sister, who is going to be a part of this, them climbing into those doors in the middle of the air there were pretty amazing. You Die, I Die with Matarazzo and Steve there, like that was very touching. Not a lot of Winona Ryder, not a lot of David Harbour, but we get Eleven and what she's trying to do, enlisting her sister to help her defeat Vecna. Vecna walking into that kitchen to confront the young girl, and the military with Nancy there shooting the rifle off, going toe to toe with Linda Hamilton and her crew. Where is that all going to take us? And of course, Will. What is Will's role in all of this? We see him embracing some of these powers that were hinted at the end of the 4th episode, and then that were hinted at throughout the 4 episodes, and then really shown at the end of the 4th episode. So how is that all going to come into play? So there's so much throughout this trailer I thought was incredible. I hope you guys liked it because I can't wait to see these things on Christmas Day. See these trailers on Christmas Day. Stephen Dustin, that's it. Yeah, saying to each other, "If you die, I die" was so good. Yeah, I agree. Just like the Supergirl trailer, right? He sees the good in people. I see the truth. I mean, these are certain lines that give you essentially the relationship, tell you the truth of the relationship. And so I like that element there as well. So yeah, I'm very excited to see this thing. I hope it's damn good. I like those first 4. I mean, the first 2 were a little creaky, and then third picking up speed, and then the 4th one was really damn good. So I hope these next episodes, which are what, like 12 days away, 11 days away when we get to tomorrow. 10 days away. Sorry, 10 days away. What the hell? Why does my date say Saturday the 13th? That's weird. That is so weird. What is up with my watch? I got to fix my watch here, y'all. I'm going to do that after I'm done here. But yeah, we're 10 days away. And really, by the time we wake up tomorrow, we'll be 9 days away from it looks like I gotta, oh, sorry, Chooch, you gotta go. You're a dick. And so we'll see how the trailer plays itself out. Oh, we'll see how the episodes play themselves out. But there was so much in that trailer to get excited about for sure. I thought it was great. And one last thing before we wrap up the show here, and I get to your final Streamlabs super chats. I hope you guys saw Ted Sarandos' comments today. There was a memo that was sent out to employees. We see this as a win for the entertainment industry, not the end of it. This is part of the memo regarding Paramount's hostile bid. Sarandos and Peters said that it was entirely expected, but we have a solid deal in place. It's great for our shareholders, great for consumers, and a strong way to create and protect jobs in the industry. We're confident we'll get it over the finish line. We're genuinely excited about what's ahead. So this is how he responded, and we should read this together. So let me take this down. We should read this together, how he responded to that question about whether they're destroying the industry or not. And I think this is important to look at because we should, like with James Gunn, you got to hold them to their words. In a Q&A, in a note to employees, Sarandos and Peters answered this question. Some feel this is the end of Hollywood. What's your response? What's our response to that? The co-CEOs wrote, this is something that we've heard for a long time, including when we started the streaming business. Our stance then and now is the same. We see this as a win for the entertainment industry, not the end of it. This deal is about growth. Warner Brothers brings businesses and capabilities we don't have, so there's no overlap or studio closures. We're strengthening one of Hollywood's most iconic studios, supporting jobs, and ensuring a healthy future for film and TV production. The two CEOs reiterated that they feel confident that Netflix will get the regulatory approvals that are needed to close the WB deal, which will lead to a lot of egg on a lot of faces, especially that dude over there on the New York Post, if they actually get it all through, as well as their pledge to keep Warner Brothers in theaters, movies in theaters. Theatrical is an important part of the Warner Brothers business and legacy, they said, and we don't want to change what makes Warner Brothers so valuable. If this deal had happened 2 years ago, hits like Minecraft and Superman would still have premiered on the big screen as they did, and that's how we plan to keep it. We haven't prioritized theatrical in the past because that wasn't our business, Netflix. When this deal closes, we will be in that business. So I think this is a positive memo, and I think people, you could say to me, you're buying the bullshit from Ted and Ted and company over there. But I believe this. I think they understand what works best for the business. They've, as he says, they've never been in the movie business theatrically. And now that they are going to make that an important part of their company and they're going to prioritize it. So I just have faith that they're going to figure this out and do it correctly and put it together correctly. So I like these comments. I think I believe these comments, and I'm hoping these comments lead to some positive stuff down the road for Warner Brothers and for Netflix, and we keep Warner Brothers out of the hands of Paramount and those MAGA tentacles of theirs that they want to change Paramount into what you, Warner Brothers into what you see CBS becoming, which is a cesspool of MAGA bullshit. And so I hope they find a way to keep that out of their hands. So we will see. We will see. All right. I think that's all the subjects we were going to talk about tonight. So let's get into these questions as we come to the end of the show. I think we left off. Where do we leave off at? Here we go. Kyle Ray's 2001 back again says speculation. Disney wants to spoil the leaks to save money on marketing budget and let YouTubers do the groundwork. Trailer equals forbidden fruit. I mean, I don't know that that's true. That would be an interesting strategy for sure if they never released it on YouTube. But yeah, I don't know necessarily they would do that, but it makes sense because I don't think the influencers are as influential as they would lead you to believe. And so I still think it's the common people who see this stuff and talk about it, tweet about it, post about it. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they deceptively went that route, just like the chairs thing. You know, the chairs thing was like, no one thought that was going to work. And then it worked, you know. Fantastic. What's up, dude? He says Phantom was the first rat time I heard someone say Phantom was the first time I heard someone say George Lucas has ruined my childhood. Yeah, it's amazing how much the revisionist history works now, right, Fred? So many people were against George Lucas back when the prequel trilogy was happening and wanted him out of Star Wars. A lot of people. Don't let them lie to you and tell you it wasn't. A lot of people wanted him out, which is why George sold. And then in the end, this is what we've ended up with, and a lot of people are disappointed. So as always in life, be careful what you wish for. It might be worse than the thing you have. And now you see the same people who wanted him out of the business, wanted out of the Star Wars business, are clamoring for him to come back in the Star Wars business. So I think he's done, though. If he ever comes back, it'll be as an advisor, but I'd be shocked out of my mind if he ever directed another Star Wars film. Kenja says, when you first saw Phantom Menace, did you know immediately that the film wasn't good, or did it take several viewings to come to that decision? Oh, no, I knew immediately. I knew immediately. The thing about being a critic on YouTube now is like when I see a movie that is a big franchise movie, I don't necessarily have a snap judgment. I'll do it out of theater reaction, but I don't necessarily have an overall snap judgment because I've seen in the past that sometimes I think one thing about a movie and then I see it a couple times. Well, The Phantom Menace, I knew immediately as I walked out of the theater. In fact, me and Michael Vogel had a battle about the movie. He has revisionist history memory about it, but because he defended Jar Jar Binks to me throughout our whole, and I was older than I was 7 years older than Michael. So to me, I saw the racist energy there for that character. And, I know they've explained it. And of course I love Ahmed Best. So I wish him nothing but the best. And it was terrible what he went through, but yeah, I knew that was a bad movie. And nothing I've seen, because I've tried to watch that movie multiple times since. It is so bad for me, like just bad. I watched it, I think 2 years ago. I tried to watch the first hour. I got through the first 30 minutes and I just was eye rolling the fuck out of my face. It's just not a good movie, in my opinion. It's not well written. It's not well acted, but for the most part. And the way things go down with Anakin and Shmi, I'm like, what is this? So it just wasn't. And then the Watto stuff, my lord, I just was like, this is a film full of stereotypes and some bad writing, and I feel nothing for this kid at all. But I think when you're young, you see a film like that, and you might see yourself in the Anakin character as a young kid, and so there is a sense of like this is you're connecting to that character, and so this is your story, and you don't need really layered, textured storylines and all of the stuff. You're just enjoying what's going on. So I totally get it. The Darth Maul fight is amazing, even though some people have rightfully pointed out how it was a bit of a flaccid. It was like a John Cena ending for Qui-Gon Jinn that was disappointing for a lot of people because of the way it went down, which I totally understand. So yeah, I knew immediately, and I've never changed my mind since. Kyle Race 2001 also says, Rain, stay in the Knives Out lane. You're killing it. Pun deliberate. Leave Star Wars alone, please. Ryan, he's saying, Ryan, I have to wait for Sean Levy's Starfighter. Yeah, we'll see where we're at with Sean Levy's Starfighter and how much of that is good and how much of that isn't and what it's going to lead to. So I'll be curious to see if that's a good movie. And I'll be curious to see who comes into Star Wars to kind of shake things up as well. We will see. We will see for sure. Let's see here. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate all the stuff you sent tonight, Kyle. Thank you so much for being the big contributor tonight. But don't know if it was. I'm so happy. What is this? It was the midichlorians. That's right. It was the midichlorians that pissed everyone off in Jar Jar and the stereotypes. 100%. 100%. But Scotty Vero says, I was 9 when the Phantom Menace came out. It will always hold a special place in my heart. Flaws I don't see. And that's what I mean. Like when you're a kid and you watch Monster House now, that is not a good movie. But in the 1980s, when you were a kid watching Monster House, that movie was great. And so you're just, when you see things as a kid, I think the nostalgia is what rules the day in your remembrance of things. So yeah, to me, that's the situation when you see it. So I think that's the truth of it all. All right, see if we got any super chat or Streamlabs rather. Okay, no more. Those are all the Streamlabs and super chats. All right, I better wrap it up there. I've been on for 2 hours. I better go get me some dinner here as it's 9:00 and I haven't eaten anything. So you guys are amazing. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight. I appreciate it. As I said, keep watching out for more of these coming. I'll have more subject matters, more varied subjects to talk about and topics to get into and what have you. And I'll be coming up with segments as well for the shows where every week, like the idiot of the week or something, or the best tweet of the week, or the heartwarming moment of the week in geekdom, like things like that. I'll start adding reviews as well because I need to do more reviews in order to maintain my status in the critics orgs. So I will add them onto my shows. So there'll be all of that happening here on the channel. So please keep subscribing to the channel, keep supporting the channel. I appreciate you all madly. Please hit a like on this video, share it on your social media, leave your comments down below. And remember to subscribe to the podcast channel. The John Rocha channel is a podcast channel. So we'd appreciate you all subscribing to that as well. So I can get some sponsors on that. I would appreciate it. So thanks for putting up with me tonight. Thanks for, helping me deal with the loss of Rob Reiner. And hopefully I helped you all tonight with anything you're dealing with, anything you're going through, and maybe some of the thoughts and feelings you had as you've been processing the sad, tragic loss of Rob Reiner last night, and thoughts on Avengers Doomsday, Star Wars, Stranger Things, and Ted Sarandos and Netflix, all that stuff. And sadly, Trump's tweet, which was just as abhorrent as anything that you've seen from him. So hopefully I helped you all deal with all of that. And remember what I say at the end of every one of these shows, and I've been saying it for years, and it's still the truth. Whatever you need to do to get through the next second, next minute, next hour, next day, next week, next month, next year, please find your way to do that. I am a testament to that, surviving my own stuff in 2016. It took me 6 months to climb out of that hell. And I still, every once in a while, tumble down a few levels. And I know what it's like. And I know the holidays are even the toughest time for a lot of people. So this is the time when you need to be the most vigilant, when you need to love yourself the most, are the holiday season now. This is where all these things can affect you. Seeing people who've got somebody, maybe you're alone, seeing people who are with family, maybe you miss your family, maybe you lost all your family, or people with friends, maybe you don't have a lot of friends, maybe you're just self-conscious about that. There's all kinds of things, even in some of you who have, as I said earlier, like me, indulging in a little bit of the sweets. Like some people have eating disorders that come and crop up during the season as well, and this is the time where you have to be really vigilant and love yourself enough to be disciplined about certain things. Still allow yourself the little bit of leeway, but be disciplined for the most part to get yourself through the season. Listen to a music song, a musical, watch a movie you love, play a video game you like, go for a walk, work out. So many avenues for you to find your way through tough times. So I just want to let you know, like, I'm with you. I feel you. I'm in that war with you, right in the battlefield next to you. I know it's not easy, but there are things to do, and you have to love yourself enough to power through the bad times if they pop for you up for you during the holiday season. All right. I love you. I'm going to be here during the holiday seasons. I'm not going nowhere. So there'll still be content coming from the John Rocha channel during Christmas and New Year's. So look for all of that coming down the pike very, very soon from all of us here on the channel. So much love tonight. Take care, everybody. I'll talk to you soon with a brand new live episode of The Truth in the Future. Peace.